When James and I first set eyes on the house on Willow Street, we thought we had finally found our dream home. Nestled in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the quaint two-story house had everything we had been searching for: spacious rooms, a beautiful backyard, and just enough charm to feel unique without being overwhelming. After years of apartment living, we were eager for a place to call our own, and Willow Street felt like the perfect fit. The day we moved in, the sun was shining, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood. As we unloaded boxes from the moving truck, a few of the neighbors came by to introduce themselves. They were friendly enough, though there was something oddly cautious in their greetings. I brushed it off as first-time nerves, convincing myself that we'd become close with them in no time. By late afternoon, James and I were exhausted but happy. We sat on the porch, admiring the view and talking about all the ways we'd make the house our own. We were excited. This was the start of something new, a fresh chapter in our lives. That first night, however, something felt off. It started with small things I didn't even mention to James because they seemed so insignificant. The temperature in the house would drop suddenly, even though the heating system was brand new. Lights would flicker, but when we called the electrician, he found nothing wrong with the wiring. And there was this faint sound, like whispering, just on the edge of my hearing. It was so quiet I could barely make it out. But it was there, constant, like the house itself was breathing. James didn't seem to notice any of it. He slept soundly every night, completely unaware of the unease creeping over me. Then came the footsteps. It was around 2 in the morning, a few weeks after we'd settled in. I woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway just outside our bedroom. They were slow, deliberate, as if someone was pacing back and forth. My heart pounded as I sat up in bed, straining to hear. The footsteps stopped suddenly, and the house fell silent again. I waited, holding my breath, but nothing happened. I convinced myself it was just my imagination, but the next night, the footsteps returned. This time, they didn't stop outside our door. They moved down the hallway, growing louder, until they reached the bottom of the stairs. Then they vanished. James finally heard them on the third night. "What the hell was that?" he whispered, sitting up in bed, his eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. "It sounds like someone's in the house." We grabbed the baseball that James kept under the bed and crept downstairs, checking every room. But the house was empty. The doors were locked, the windows shut tight. There was no sign of an intruder. Still, the footsteps persisted, every night like clockwork. As the weeks passed, other strange things started happening. We would wake up to find doors wide open that we had closed the night before. The air would grow heavy with a musty, unpleasant odor that seemed to come and go without warning. Sometimes, we'd hear the faint sound of laughter, as if a group of children were playing somewhere in the house, though no one else was there. One night, I was in the kitchen, cleaning up after dinner, when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. A shadow, just a flicker, darting across the hallway. I turned quickly, expecting to see James, but the hallway was empty. "James?" I called out, my voice shaking. No response. I walked through the house, searching every room, but he was nowhere to be found. Panic started to rise in my chest. It wasn't until I walked outside and found him in the backyard, completely unaware of my distress, that I began to question my sanity. "I've had enough of this," I said one night as we lay in bed, the footsteps once again echoing through the house. "We need to figure out what's going on." James agreed. We hired a paranormal investigator, something I had never believed in until now, but I was desperate for answers. The investigator, a woman named Clara, arrived a few days later with a box of strange equipment and a calm demeanor that made me feel both reassured and unnerved at the same time. She walked through the house slowly, her eyes closed, as if she were listening for something we couldn't hear. After what felt like hours, she finally spoke. "There's something here," she said quietly, "something old, and it's not happy." She explained that the house had a history, one that wasn't in the official records. Years ago, before the house was built, the land had been home to a small, isolated community. There were rumors of strange rituals, of disappearances, but nothing was ever confirmed. When the community dissolved, the land was sold, and the house was built. But something from that time had remained. Clara set up her equipment and told us she would stay the night to see if she could capture any evidence. I barely slept, too terrified to close my eyes. The footsteps were louder than ever that night, echoing through the walls, seeming to come from all directions. I heard whispers, faint and unintelligible, but they felt close, as if someone was standing right beside me. The next morning, Clara played back the recordings. What we heard sent chills down my spine. There were voices, soft but clear, whispering our names. And then there was the sound of children laughing, just as I had heard before. "This isn't a haunting," Clara said, her face pale. "It's a warning." I didn't understand what she meant at first, but over the next few days, things escalated quickly. The activity became violent. Objects flew off shelves, doors slammed shut on their own, and the footsteps grew louder, more frantic. One night, we woke up to find the word "leave" scratched into the wall above our bed. We decided it was time to go. As we packed up to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The air felt heavy, oppressive, as if the house itself was angry that we were leaving. On our final night in the house, I had a nightmare, a vivid, terrifying dream where I was trapped in the house, unable to escape as unseen hands pulled me deeper into the darkness. We moved out the next day, leaving Willow Street behind us. We never looked back. A few months later, I heard that the house had been sold again. The new owners seemed excited, just as we had been, unaware of what they were walking into. I wanted to warn them, to tell them about the footsteps, the shadows, the voices. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Whatever haunted that house wasn't done with us. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind howls outside our new home, I can still hear the footsteps, slow and deliberate, following us. When Sam and I first set foot inside the house on Cedar Lane, it felt like a breath of fresh air after months of grueling house hunting. With its large windows, hardwood floors, and picturesque backyard, it seemed like the perfect place to start the next chapter of our lives. We were newly married, eager to make this house a home, and Cedar Lane felt like the perfect spot. It was an older home, built sometime in the early 1900s, but had been recently renovated. The previous owners had moved out in a hurry, something about relocating overseas for work, but everything inside was in pristine condition. The realtor assured us there were no issues with the house, so we signed the papers and moved in within a month. The first few weeks went by smoothly. We spent our time decorating, painting, and getting to know the neighborhood. The neighbors were friendly but distant. No one seemed particularly eager to get to know us. which was strange in such a close, knit community, but we figured people just needed time. One evening, as we were sitting on the back porch, I noticed something odd. There was a large tree at the edge of the backyard, its branches sprawling wide and casting deep shadows across the lawn. In the fading light, I saw what looked like a figure standing just beneath it. My heart skipped a beat. "Sam, do you see that?" I asked, pointing toward the tree. He squinted into the distance but shook his head. "See what? There, under the tree. It looks like someone standing there." Sam looked again, but by then, the figure had disappeared. He laughed it off, saying it was probably just a shadow, or my eyes playing tricks on me in the dim light. I forced myself to agree, but deep down, I knew what I had seen. That night, as we lay in bed, I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that someone, or something, was watching. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind against the windows set my nerves on edge. I woke up in the middle of the night, my heart racing, convinced that I heard footsteps outside our bedroom door. But when I nudged Sam awake, he brushed it off, telling me it was just the house settling. The next morning, I chalked it all up to new home jitters. But as the days passed, things started getting stranger. It started small, like most things do. Lights would flicker, and appliances would turn on or off by themselves. At first, we thought it was a wiring issue, so we called an electrician. But after inspecting the entire house, he found nothing wrong. "It's an old house," the electrician had said. "These things happen," but what happened next couldn't be explained by old wiring. One evening, while Sam was at work, I was alone in the house, reading a book in the living room. The house was quiet, save for the occasional hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I was fully immersed in my book when I heard a noise from upstairs, a soft thud, like something falling to the floor. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest. We had no pets, and I was certain all the windows were closed, so there was no reason for anything to have moved upstairs. I debated whether or not to investigate, but eventually mustered up the courage. Clutching my phone, I crept up the stairs, every creak beneath my feet sending a shiver down my spine. I reached the top landing and paused. The door to the guest room was slightly ajar, even though I was sure I had closed it earlier. My pulse quickened as I pushed the door open. The room was empty, just as I had left it, but something felt off. The air was cold, much colder than the rest of the house, and there was a strange smell, like damp earth. My eyes scanned the room, and then I saw it. On the floor, in the middle of the room, was a photo album. It was one of the old albums Sam and I had found in the attic when we first moved in, filled with black and white photos of the house's previous owners. We had left it in the attic, deciding we'd go through it later. But now it was here, in the middle of the guest room floor, open to a page with a picture of a family standing under the tree in the backyard. My heart raced as I stared at the photo. The family looked normal enough, a man, woman, and 2 young children. But there was something off about the man's expression. His eyes, though small in the faded photo, seemed to bore into me, like he was staring right through the camera, right through time. I slammed the album shut and hurried back downstairs, too shaken to even think about staying up there any longer. When Sam came home later that night, I told him what had happened. He listened patiently but didn't seem too concerned. "It's an old house, Emma," he said, rubbing my shoulder. "We're going to hear weird noises. And as for the album, maybe we brought it downstairs and just forgot about it." I wanted to believe him, but I knew we hadn't touched that album since we'd found it in the attic. Still, I didn't argue. I just wanted to sleep and forget about the whole thing. But the next few nights were even worse. The footsteps that I had heard faintly before became more pronounced. They echoed through the house at night, slow and deliberate, as if someone were walking from room to room. And then there were the whispers, faint, unintelligible, but unmistakable. Sometimes, they sounded like they were coming from just outside our bedroom door. One night, I woke up to the sound of laughter, children's laughter, light and carefree, but disturbingly out of place in the dead of night. I shot up in bed, my heart pounding. Sam was still asleep beside me, completely unaware of the noise. I nudged him awake, but by the time he stirred, the laughter had stopped. The following day, I decided to dig deeper into the house's history. I spent hours at the local library, poring over old newspaper articles and property records. What I found made my blood run cold. In the early 1950s, a family had lived in the house, George and Evelyn Thompson, and their two children, David and Lillian. According to the articles, George had been a respected doctor in the community, but rumors had swirled around the family for years. Neighbors had reported strange occurrences at the house, and there were whispers of George being involved in something dark, something occult. Then, in 1957, the entire family disappeared without a trace. The police conducted an extensive investigation, but no bodies were ever found. The case went cold, and the house remained vacant for years until it was eventually sold and renovated. I raced home, my mind reeling from what I had learned. When I told Sam, he was skeptical, as always. But I knew deep down, that whatever had happened to the Thompson family wasn't just a mystery. It was something more sinister. That night, things escalated. We were sitting in the living room when all the lights in the house flickered and went out. The air grew thick, and I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand on end. The house was plunged into darkness, and then the footsteps began again. This time, they were louder, closer. "Sam," I whispered, gripping his arm. "Do you hear that?" He nodded, his face pale. For the first time, I could see fear in his eyes. The footsteps grew closer, echoing down the hallway toward us. And then, from the darkness, came a voice, a low, raspy whisper. "Get out." We didn't need to be told twice. We grabbed our keys and bolted out of the house, not stopping until we were in the car, driving away from Cedar Lane as fast as we could. We never went back. The house was sold again a few months later, to another unsuspecting couple. I wanted to warn them, to tell them about the footsteps, the whispers, the shadows beneath the tree. But I didn't. Some things, I realized, are better left unsaid. The house on Maple Street stood out among the rest, not for its size or architecture, but for the haunting stories that seemed to cling to its weathered walls. My friends and I had grown up hearing about the tragic events that unfolded within its confines, but curiosity often outweighed caution. So, when my best friend Jake suggested we explore the old house during our summer break, I couldn't resist the pull of adventure. It was a late June afternoon when we arrived at the house, the sun casting long shadows across the overgrown lawn. The air was thick with humidity, and a faint breeze rustled the leaves, creating an atmosphere that felt both eerie and inviting. Jake, along with our friends Lily and Max, stood by the front gate, looking up at the dilapidated structure. "Are we really doing this?" Lily asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Come on, it's just an old house," Jake replied with a grin. "What's the worst that could happen?" I wasn't so sure. The stories of the previous occupants loomed in my mind. How the Anderson family had vanished one stormy night, leaving everything behind. Their disappearance remained a mystery, whispered about in hushed tones among the locals. "Let's just take a quick look around," I suggested, hoping to ease Lily's fears. "We'll be in and out in no time." With hesitant nods, we made our way through the creaky gate and onto the porch, where the wooden floorboards groaned beneath our weight. The front door hung ajar, almost as if inviting us in. I glanced at my friends, and we exchanged nervous smiles before stepping inside. The air inside was stale, carrying the scent of damp wood and something else, something faintly metallic. Dust motes floated in the shafts of light that broke through the cracked windows. As we moved further into the house, our footsteps echoed eerily against the walls. "Wow, this place is like a time capsule," Max said, glancing around at the faded wallpaper and broken furniture. "It's like we've stepped back in time." Jake laughed and nudged him. "Just watch out for ghosts. They might not like uninvited guests." As we explored the first floor, we found remnants of the Anderson family's life, family portraits hanging askew on the walls, a dusty piano in the corner, and a dining table still set for dinner, though the plates were chipped and covered in dust. The atmosphere was heavy, and an unsettling feeling settled in my stomach. "Let's check upstairs," Jake suggested, already heading toward the staircase. The creaking steps protested under our weight as we climbed to the second floor. The hallway was dark, illuminated only by the dim light filtering through the grimy windows. Each room we entered told a story, but there was one room that seemed to draw us in, the master bedroom. The door creaked open, revealing a space frozen in time. The bed was made, the covers neatly tucked, and a small table held a photograph of the Anderson family. I picked it up, staring at their smiling faces. They looked so happy. How could such a tragedy happen to them? Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the room, causing me to shiver. I turned to my friends, who looked equally unsettled. "Did you feel that?" I asked. "Yeah, it's like the temperature dropped," Lily replied, rubbing her arms as if trying to ward off the cold. Jake shrugged, trying to keep the mood light. "It's just an old house. Let's not freak out." As I placed the photograph back on the table, I noticed something on the floor, a small, ornate box. Curiosity piqued. I knelt down and opened it. Inside was a collection of old letters, yellowed with age. The first letter I picked up was addressed to Evelyn Anderson, and it was dated just days before the family vanished. "Hey, check this out," I called to my friends, who gathered around as I began to read aloud. "Dearest Evelyn, I fear for our safety. Strange occurrences have been happening in the house, and I cannot shake the feeling that we are being watched. Please be cautious." A chill ran down my spine as I read. What had happened to this family? I flipped through the letters, each one revealing more unsettling thoughts from Evelyn, all mentioning shadows in the corners of her vision, whispers in the night, and a sense of dread that had taken hold of her. "Maybe we should leave," Lily suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. "Just one more letter," Jake urged, clearly intrigued. I hesitated but continued reading. The final letter was dated just days before the family disappeared. "I cannot stay here any longer. I will be leaving tonight with the children. If you find this letter, know that I did everything I could to protect them. I fear whatever haunts this house will take us if we remain. I dropped the letters back into the box, feeling nauseous. The implications of Evelyn's words sank in like a stone in my gut. Whatever had taken hold of this house had also taken her family. "Guys, this is getting weird," I said, looking at their pale faces. "Maybe we should head back down." As we turned to leave the room, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, sending us into a frenzy of panic. "What was that?" Lily shrieked, her eyes wide with terror. "I don't know, but we need to get out of here," Jake shouted, rushing past me toward the stairs. We stumbled down the hallway, adrenaline coursing through our veins. As we reached the top of the staircase, I froze, my heart sinking into my stomach. A shadow darted across the wall at the bottom of the stairs, and for a moment, I was paralyzed with fear. "What's wrong?" Jake called back, noticing I had stopped. I couldn't respond. I felt a deep, instinctual warning to turn back, but the others urged me forward. "Come on, we have to go." I forced my legs to move, nearly tripping over myself as we raced down the stairs. The crash we had heard had come from the dining room, where we found a chair overturned, the table cleared of its dust, covered plates. We hurried outside, bursting through the front door and into the cool evening air. The sunlight was fading fast, casting long shadows across the yard. As we reached the safety of the street, we paused to catch our breath. "What the hell was that?" Max panted, glancing back at the house. "I don't know," I replied, feeling a chill run down my spine. "But we need to tell someone about this." Before we could walk away, the door of the house creaked open once more, revealing a darkened interior. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, its outline shrouded in shadow. "Is someone still in there?" Jake called, his voice shaking. We stood frozen in place, fear gripping us as the figure stepped forward, revealing itself. But it wasn't a person. It was a large, dark shape, indistinct and shifting. It seemed to absorb the light around it, twisting and writhing like smoke. "Run!" I screamed, breaking the spell of fear that held us in place. We sprinted down the street, not stopping until we reached the end of Maple Street. Our lungs burned, but we didn't look back. The figure lingered in our minds, an indelible mark of fear we would carry with us. In the days that followed, we tried to process what we had experienced. We spent hours talking about the house, the letters, and the shadowy figure. Each of us had different pieces of the same haunting puzzle, but no one seemed to have answers. We debated returning to the house, but the thought filled us with dread. Weeks later, I couldn't shake the feeling that we needed to know more. I started researching the Anderson family, digging into old records and newspaper articles. I discovered that the family had been reported missing, but the case had grown cold over the years. As I delved deeper, I stumbled upon an old town meeting record. Residents had reported strange happenings in the neighborhood for decades, lights flickering, odd noises, and shadows lurking in the corners. The mention of the Anderson family sent chills down my spine. Were they victims of something far more sinister? I gathered my friends again, determined to return to the house. "We need to understand what happened there," I said. "We can't just let it go." Reluctantly, they agreed, and we planned our next visit for a Saturday afternoon. Armed with flashlights and determination, we made our way back to Maple Street. The house loomed ahead, its presence more foreboding than before. As we stepped inside, the air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. We moved cautiously through the first floor, the floorboards creaking beneath our feet as we made our way back to the master bedroom. Once inside, I reached for the ornate box, but it was gone. Panic surged through me. "Where's the box?" I asked, looking at my friends. "It was right here." "I don't know," Jake replied, a hint of worrying in his voice. "Maybe we should check downstairs again." We searched every room, every corner of the house, but there was no sign of the box or the letters. Each passing moment filled us with dread. What had we awakened? As we reached the front hallway, the door slammed shut, rattling the house. The temperature dropped suddenly, and I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I could hear whispers, faint and distant, echoing in my ears. The air grew thick and suffocating. "Something's not right," Max whispered, his eyes wide with fear. Before we could react, shadows began to swirl around us, creeping along the walls like dark tendrils. They coiled around our ankles, pulling us toward the staircase. "Get out!" I screamed, pulling against the darkness that threatened to engulf us. We turned to flee, racing toward the front door. But as we reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. We were trapped. "Help! Somebody help us!" Lily cried, her voice panicking. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices urging us to leave, to escape. I felt a force pushing against me, as if the house itself wanted to keep us inside. I grasped the doorknob, my heart racing as I pushed with all my strength. With a final shove, the door flew open, and we stumbled out into the daylight, gasping for breath. The shadows receded behind us, and the whispers faded into silence. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of the street, our hearts pounding in our chests. The house loomed behind us, silent now, but we knew it was far from empty. "What just happened?" Jake panted, glancing back at the house. "I don't know," I replied, shaking. "But we can't go back there again." In the following days, we couldn't shake the feeling that the house was still watching us. I continued my research, but the answers remained elusive. The Anderson family's fate was still a mystery, but I knew one thing for certain. The house was not just a relic of the past, it was alive with the echoes of its former inhabitants. We stayed away from Maple Street, but the whispers haunted my dreams. I could see the shadows, feel their cold presence wrapping around me. I knew we had disturbed something that should have remained undisturbed. Months passed, and life continued, but the weight of that summer day lingered in my mind. I often wondered about the Anderson family and what had truly happened in that house. It was a question that would never be answered, a mystery that would remain locked away within those walls. Then one night, while I was trying to sleep, I heard a soft tapping at my window. My heart raced, and I glanced toward the sound. Standing there, illuminated by the pale moonlight, was a figure. A girl, no older than 10, with long hair falling over her shoulders, her face pale and sad. I rushed to the window, heart pounding. "Who are you?" I whispered. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with an unfathomable sadness. "Please help us." The words sent chills down my spine. I knew then that the house on Maple Street was not just a haunted relic, it was a prison for the souls trapped within its walls. And I was certain that the whispers of the forgotten house would never let me go. Moving to a new home is supposed to be a fresh start, but for Lily and her husband, Mark, it became a nightmare. They were excited to leave the bustling city behind and settle into a quaint little neighborhood. Their new house, an old colonial-style structure, was perfect, at least on the surface. With its ivy-covered facade and sprawling backyard, it seemed to be the ideal place to raise their young daughter, Mia. However, as the days turned into weeks, they quickly discovered that their dream home was hiding dark secrets. From the moment they stepped inside, Lily felt an unsettling aura. The air was thick, as if it had absorbed the sorrow of its previous inhabitants. The walls were adorned with peeling wallpaper, and the floors creaked underfoot, each sound echoing in the silence. Mark tried to reassure her, dismissing her concerns as merely nerves about the move. "It's an old house, Lily. They all have character," he said, attempting to lighten the mood. But deep down, she felt something was off. As they settled in, the first signs of strangeness began to appear. Mia, who was just 7, would often talk to an imaginary friend named Emma. At first, Lily thought it was harmless childhood play, but Mia's descriptions of Emma were unnervingly detailed. She described her as a girl with long, dark hair, dressed in a faded white dress, and always smiling. One evening, while tucking Mia into bed, Lily asked, "What does Emma look like?" "She's really pretty, Mommy. She says she used to live here," Mia exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Used to live here," Lily echoed, her heart racing. "What do you mean?" Mia shrugged, her innocence shining through. "She says she likes to play hide and seek in the attic." That night, as Lily lay in bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something wrong with the house. She turned to Mark, who was reading in bed. "What do you think about Mia's imaginary friend?" Mark chuckled, shaking his head. "Kids have wild imaginations, Lily. It's nothing to worry about." But as the days passed, Lily's unease grew. Strange occurrences began to unfold, footsteps echoing in the hall at night, whispers in the dark, and doors that creaked open on their own. One night, as she was washing the dishes, she glanced out the window and saw a figure standing in the backyard. It was a little girl, dressed in a white dress. Her heart raced as she wiped her hands and rushed outside. "Mia," she called out, but the girl turned and vanished into the darkness. Lily stumbled back, her breath quickening. She called for Mark, who rushed outside to find her pale and shaken. "What happened?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "I saw a little girl out here," she stammered, pointing toward the trees. "She was wearing a white dress, just like Mia said." Mark's brow furrowed as he looked around the yard. "Lily, there's no one here." She felt a chill run down her spine. "But I swear I saw her." Determined to uncover the truth, Lily began researching the history of the house. The more she dug, the more she unearthed stories of tragedy. Years ago, the home had belonged to a family named the Morgans. Their daughter, Emma, had mysteriously disappeared one summer day, and despite extensive searches, she was never found. The town had been plagued by rumors ever since, and the house had been left to decay. The next night, Lily decided to confront her fears. She climbed up to the attic, determined to discover what lay hidden in the shadows. The attic was cluttered with old furniture and boxes, dust swirling in the dim light. As she rummaged through the belongings, she found an old trunk. Curiosity piqued, she opened it, revealing an assortment of toys, clothes, and a faded journal. Flipping through the pages, she realized it belonged to Emma. The entries were filled with childhood dreams and innocence, but they also hinted at loneliness. One entry stood out. "I wish I had a friend to play with." Suddenly, a cold breeze rushed through the attic, and she felt a presence behind her. She spun around, heart racing, but saw nothing. Yet, she could feel eyes watching her. Gripped by fear, she clutched the journal and rushed down the stairs. Mark was waiting in the living room, concern written all over his face. You look like you've seen a ghost, he remarked, trying to inject some humor into the situation. I think I have, she whispered, her hands shaking as she showed him the journal. This belonged to Emma. She lived here, and she disappeared. Mark's expression turned serious. What does it say? Lily read aloud the entries, her voice trembling. As she finished, she felt a heavy silence envelop them. I think she wants us to help her find peace, she concluded. Mark frowned. You really believe that? This is just a kid's journal. It doesn't mean she's haunting the house. I know what I felt, Mark. There's something here, she insisted. That night, as they prepared for bed, Lily heard Mia talking in her room. She listened carefully, her heart sinking as she recognized the name. Emma, you're my best friend, Mia said, her voice filled with joy. Lily rushed in, her stomach churning. Mia, who are you talking to? Mia looked up, her big brown eyes innocent. Emma, she's right here. Lily felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Mia, you need to stop playing with her. She's not real. But Mommy, she is. She says you're scared of her, Mia replied, her face scrunching in confusion. No, honey, it's just, Lily started, but her words faltered. She looked at her daughter, whose smile faded as she sensed her mother's fear. Emma just wants to play, Mia insisted, and Lily felt a pang of sorrow. In that moment, she realized that Emma was not just a figment of imagination. She was a lost soul, reaching out for connection. Lily took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Maybe she just wants a friend, she murmured, looking at Mia. After that night, Lily decided to reach out to the spirit. She felt compelled to help Emma find peace. With Mark's reluctant support, they arranged a seance in the living room. They lit candles and created a circle, holding hands as they focused their energy on contacting Emma. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation and fear. Emma, if you're here, we want to help you, Lily called, her voice steady. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the temperature dropped, and the candles flickered. Help me, came a soft voice, barely audible. Lily's heart raced. What do you need? She asked, her voice trembling. Find me, the voice echoed, and the shadows in the room seemed to swirl. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the room went dark. Panic surged through Lily as she felt an unseen presence brush against her cheek. Turn on the lights, she shouted, her voice cracking. Mark scrambled for the switch, and the room flooded with light, revealing Mia standing in the doorway, wide-eyed. What's happening? She cried, fear etched on her face. Nothing, sweetheart. We're just trying to help Emma, Lily replied, forcing a smile. Mia nodded, her innocence shining through. Emma says you're scared, she whispered, and Lily's heart sank. Mark pulled Mia into his arms, comforting her. It's okay, Mia. We just need to figure out what Emma wants. As they settled back into their circle, Lily took a deep breath, determined to connect with the spirit. Emma, please, we want to help you. Tell us what we need to do. The air grew heavy, and the lights flickered again. Find me, in the garden, came the whisper, sending chills down Lily's spine. Okay, she whispered, feeling a sense of purpose. We'll find you. The next day, Lily and Mark ventured into the backyard. The garden was overgrown, wild and untamed. As they explored, Lily's eyes fell on an area near the old oak tree, where the soil looked disturbed. Do you think, she started, her heart racing. Mark nodded, his expression grave. We should dig. If Emma is buried here, we need to find her. With determination, They gathered shovels and began to dig. As they unearthed the earth, anxiety mixed with hope. After a few hours of labor, they struck something hard. "What is it?" Mark asked, his hands trembling as he brushed away the dirt. Lily's breath caught in her throat as they revealed a small, rusted metal box. She carefully opened it, revealing a collection of old toys, a faded photograph of a girl, Emma, holding a teddy bear, and a small diary. "This is it," she breathed, holding up the photograph. "This is Emma." Mark took the diary and flipped through the pages, eyes widening as he read aloud. "I wish I could go outside to play, but they won't let me. I'm lonely. I miss my friends." Tears filled Lily's eyes as she realized how alone Emma must have felt. She just wanted to be free, she said, her heart aching. Mark placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We need to give her a proper burial. She deserves peace." They decided to lay Emma to rest beneath the old oak tree. They carefully placed the photographed toys and diary in a small casket they fashioned from an old box. As they buried Emma's belongings, they felt a sense of closure wash over them. That evening, as the sun set, they gathered as a family beneath the oak tree, Mia holding a small bouquet of flowers. "For Emma," she said softly, placing them on the fresh soil. "Goodbye, Emma," Lily whispered, her heart full of love and sorrow. "You're finally free." As they turned to leave, the air around them felt lighter, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. That night, for the first time since moving in, Lily slept peacefully. There were no whispers, no shadows lurking in the corners, just calm. The following days brought a newfound tranquility to their home. Mia still spoke of Emma, but now it was with warmth rather than fear. The darkness that had once hung over them began to lift, replaced by light and laughter. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Lily felt a strange sense of comfort. She glanced at Mark, who was reading on the couch, and Mia, who was drawing at the table. "I think we finally did it," she said softly, a smile breaking across her face. Mark looked up, nodding. "We helped her find peace." The following weekend, they decided to have a picnic in the garden. As they spread out the blanket beneath the oak tree, Mia beamed with joy. "Emma would love this," she said, her innocence shining through. Lily smiled, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. Yes, she would. As they shared sandwiches and laughter, the air felt different, lighter, happier. The shadows that once haunted their home had vanished, replaced by the warmth of a family finally at peace. That night, as Lily tucked Mia into bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that they had created a bond with Emma, a connection that transcended the afterlife. "Good night, Emma," Mia whispered, and for the first time, Lily felt a sense of closure. In the days that followed, their home thrived with life and love. They painted the walls, filled the rooms with laughter, and turned the house into a true home. But there was something more, an inexplicable warmth that surrounded them, a gentle reminder that even in the darkest of places, light could break through. And in the quiet moments, when the world was still, Lily would sometimes catch a glimpse of a little girl in a white dress playing in the garden, her laughter echoing in the breeze. If you need anything further or want to proceed with another story, just let me know. Anna had always been a free spirit. She thrived on adventure, relishing the unexpected and the unknown. So when her friends suggested a weekend getaway to an old, historic hotel in a small town, she jumped at the chance. The prospect of exploring a place steeped in history excited her. The Oakwood Hotel, with its grand architecture and tales of ghostly encounters, seemed like the perfect backdrop for a weekend of fun and exploration. The Oakwood Hotel had been built in the late 1800s and was known for its lavish parties and wealthy guests. But over the years, it had fallen into disrepair, and many whispered about its haunted past. Anna and her friends, excited by the spooky tales, booked room 317, rumored to be the most haunted room in the hotel. As Anna arrived at the hotel, she felt a shiver run down her spine. The facade of the building was stunning, with its towering columns and ornate details, but there was an unsettling awe about it. Ignoring her instinct, she pushed the thought aside, eager to begin their adventure. Her friends, Jake, Sarah, and Tom, were already there, laughing and unpacking their things. "You made it. We were just about to order some drinks," Jake called, grinning widely. Anna dropped her bag on the bed and joined them. "I can't believe we're finally here. This place is amazing." After settling in, they decided to explore the hotel. The hallways were dimly lit, with vintage portraits lining the walls. Anna felt a chill in the air, but she brushed it off as excitement. They wandered through the hotel, marveling at its beauty and history, until they reached the entrance to room 317. As Anna reached for the door handle, she felt a sudden, intense chill. "Do you guys feel that?" she asked, glancing back at her friends. "Feel what?" Tom replied, shrugging. "It's just an old hotel." She hesitated but pushed the door open. The room was cozy yet eerie, adorned with antique furniture and heavy drapes. A large, ornate mirror hung on the wall, reflecting the dim light. As they stepped inside, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. "Okay, let's make this a night to remember," Sarah exclaimed, pouring drinks for everyone. They gathered in a circle, the atmosphere light and jovial as they laughed and shared ghost stories. As the night wore on, the laughter faded, and the ambience shifted. Anna felt an inexplicable heaviness in the room. The air grew thicker, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. "Hey, let's try to contact any spirits here," Jake suggested, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "What do you say, Anna? You're the adventurous one." Reluctantly, Anna agreed. They arranged the chairs in a circle and turned off the lights, using only the dim glow of their phones to guide them. "Let's call out to any spirits in this room," Jake said, grinning. "If you're here, give us a sign." The group fell silent, waiting. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a soft whisper floated through the air, sending shivers down Anna's spine. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her heart racing. "Hear what?" Tom asked, looking around nervously. "Something whispered," Anna insisted, her voice trembling. Jake shrugged, trying to ease the tension. "It's just your imagination." But Anna wasn't convinced. The whispers continued, soft and barely audible, growing louder. "Get out," they seemed to chant. Panic surged through her. "We should stop. This isn't right," she urged, but her friends were too caught up in the thrill to listen. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the room, making them all jump. A picture frame fell from the wall, shattering on the floor. The atmosphere shifted, becoming oppressive and suffocating. "Okay, this is getting creepy," Sarah said, her voice shaky. "Maybe we should just go to bed," Tom suggested, looking around nervously. Reluctantly, they decided to call it a night. As Anna crawled into bed, she felt a lingering unease. The whispers hadn't stopped. They echoed in her mind, twisting her thoughts and creeping into her dreams. In the early hours of the morning, Anna awoke to the sound of someone sobbing. Confused and terrified, she glanced around the room, her heart pounding. The sobbing grew louder, resonating in the darkness. "Hello," she called out, her voice shaky. "Is someone there?" The sobbing abruptly stopped, replaced by a heavy silence. Anna felt a chill wash over her, and the shadows in the room seemed to deepen. Then, a soft voice emerged from the darkness. "Help me, please." Anna's blood ran cold. She sat up in bed, heart racing. "Who are you?" she whispered, unable to contain her fear. "I'm trapped," the voice replied, filled with anguish. "You have to help me." Before Anna could respond, the room filled with an icy wind, and she saw a shadowy figure appear at the foot of her bed. "Please," the girl implored, her voice breaking. "Help me." Anna's breath caught in her throat. "How? What do you need?" she managed to ask, her heart pounding in her chest. The girl pointed toward the mirror. "Find me. I'm trapped in the mirror. You have to free me." Anna felt a surge of panic. "What do you mean you're trapped? How can I help you?" The girl's expression twisted with sorrow. "You must uncover the truth. The mirror holds the key." Just as quickly as she appeared, the girl vanished, leaving Anna trembling in the darkness. She glanced around the room, her heart racing. She had to wake her friends. "Guys," Anna shouted, shaking Sarah awake. "Wake up. We need to go, now." "What is it?" Sarah groaned, rubbing her eyes. "There's something in this room. We have to get out of here." Anna scrambled to wake Jake and Tom, her heart racing. "We need to leave this hotel." As they gathered their belongings, Anna couldn't shake the feeling of dread. The girl's words echoed in her mind. "Find me." Once outside, they stood in the cool night air, their breaths coming out in shaky puffs. "What happened in there?" Jake asked, concern etched on his face. Anna took a deep breath, her voice trembling as she explained everything. "There's a girl. She's trapped in the mirror. We have to help her." "Are you sure you weren't just dreaming?" Tom asked skeptically. "No, I saw her. She was real." Anna insisted, her heart racing. "We have to do something." After a brief debate, they reluctantly decided to return to room 317. With flashlights in hand, they crept back down the dimly lit hallway, their footsteps echoing in the silence. As they entered the room, Anna felt a surge of fear but also a sense of determination. "We need to find out what happened here," she said, looking at the mirror. Sarah stepped forward. "What do we do?" Anna remembered the girl's plea. "We need to uncover the truth. There has to be a reason she's trapped." Together, they examined the mirror, searching for any clues. It was an ornate piece, its frame intricately carved with designs that looked like vines twisting around the edges. Anna ran her fingers along the surface, feeling a strange warmth emanating from it. Suddenly, she felt a sharp pain in her palm. She pulled her hand back, staring at a small cut that had appeared. "Ouch! What the hell? Are you okay?" Jake asked, his voice laced with concern. "I'm fine," she replied, but as she looked back at the mirror, the girl's face appeared, distorted and twisted in anguish. "Help me, please," the girl whispered, and Anna felt a pull, as if the mirror was drawing her in. "Get away from the mirror," Sarah shouted, pulling Anna back. "It's not safe." But Anna couldn't look away. The girl's eyes bored into hers, filled with desperation. "Find my bones, in the cellar," she urged. "Please help me." "Did you hear that?" Anna asked, her voice filled with urgency. "She said we need to go to the cellar." "We can't go down there," Tom protested, his face pale. What if there's something down there? We have to try, Anna insisted. It's the only way to help her. With reluctance, they made their way to the basement. The stairs creaked ominously under their weight as they descended into the darkness. A foul smell permeated the air, and they shone their flashlights around, revealing damp walls and debris scattered across the floor. Anna led the way, determined to find whatever the girl had asked for. She mentioned bones, she whispered, shivering at the thought. They must be here somewhere. As they searched through the clutter, Anna's heart raced. She spotted a corner that seemed to have been disturbed. Over here, she called, kneeling down to inspect the area. The floor was uneven, and a small hole was visible. Help me dig, she urged her friends. They worked together, pulling away dirt and debris until they uncovered a small, weathered box. Anna's hands trembled as she opened it, revealing a collection of small bones, some wrapped in tattered fabric. "Oh my God," Sarah gasped, covering her mouth. "Is this—" Tom started, but Anna nodded, her heart heavy. "This must be her. We have to give her a proper burial," Anna said, her voice trembling with emotion. "She deserves to rest in peace," the group agreed, and they carefully wrapped the bones in a cloth they found nearby. They couldn't leave the hotel without ensuring the girl could finally be free. "Where should we bury her?" Jake asked, looking around nervously. "Underneath the oak tree in the garden," Anna suggested. "It seems fitting." With the box clutched tightly in Anna's hands, they made their way back upstairs. The hotel felt different now, the oppressive air replaced by a sense of urgency. They reached the garden, the moonlight casting an ethereal glow over everything. They dug a small grave beneath the ancient oak tree, their hands shaking as they worked. "I can't believe we're doing this," Sarah whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's what she needs," Anna replied, her heart heavy with grief. "She's been trapped for too long." Once they finished digging, they carefully placed the bones in the ground, wrapping them in the cloth. "Rest in peace," Anna murmured, tears in her eyes. As they covered the grave, a gentle breeze swept through the garden, and for a moment, the air felt lighter. It was as if a weight had been lifted, a sense of calm replacing the tension that had hung over them. That night, as they returned to room 317, Anna felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced before. The air was still, and the whispers had finally ceased. "I think we did it," she said softly, glancing around the room. "I hope so," Sarah replied, her voice filled with uncertainty. They settled in for the night, and Anna drifted off to sleep, feeling a comforting presence enveloping her. In her dreams, she saw the girl once more, but this time, she wore a serene smile. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice echoing through the darkness. "I'm free now." When Anna awoke the next morning, the sun streamed through the window, bathing the room in golden light. The atmosphere was different. It felt warm and inviting, devoid of the previous dread that had lingered. "We should head out soon," Tom said, glancing at his watch. As they packed their belongings, Anna felt a strange sense of closure. They had helped someone find peace, and in doing so, they had also found their own. As they checked out of the Oakwood Hotel, Anna took one last look at the grand structure. "Goodbye," she whispered, a smile on her face. Once outside, she felt the weight of the past lift, replaced by a renewed sense of adventure. They drove away, leaving the haunted hotel behind, but the memories of that weekend would linger with them forever. As they traveled home, Anna glanced out the window, feeling a warmth enveloping her. She knew the girl was finally at peace, and in some way, she felt connected to her, a bond that would last beyond the physical realm. If you need anything further or want to proceed with another story, just let me know.